Hello chess fans and welcome to Chess Vibe, and today's video is just going to be awesome because today I'm going to discuss 6 chess tips which are going to help you tremendously in improving your chess game and as well as your chess skill. So today's 6 tips are just going to be awesome because every tip consists of much high level of knowledge and yeah, very basic fundamental of knowledge. So this video is going to be very short and we are going to learn a lot. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Chess Facts. So the first tip here is develop your pieces. What I mean by it? Let's check it out. So white starts with 1e4, knight c6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop c4, d6, and now we have bishop to f4. So what is happening? What I meant by develop your pieces here is I want to say the minor pieces. The bishop and the knights are the minor piece of the chess game. You should always try to go for developing your minor pieces first, rather than trying to develop your queen as well as your rook. Yeah, you should never try to make such moves that will stop your minor pieces development. You should always try to focus on your minor pieces development. You can see that how White simply wasted no time and he simply developed the pieces. Let's check it out once again. e4, knight c6, d4, knight f6, and now we have knight c3. White wasted no time. He played knight c3, developed the minor piece. We have g6, and now we have another developed piece, knight to f3. Black played bishop g7, and now we have another developing bishop to c4. d6, and now we have bishop f. The final move. The development is just completed. White will castle, and the development is over. So this is the first step. Develop your pieces as fast as you can. So now let's move to the second tip. So the second tip here is castle as soon as possible. What I mean by this, I think this topic is very easily understandable. I'm meant to say that castle as soon as possible. Let's check it. e4, knight c6, knight f3, d6, bishop c4, e5, and now we have castle. So we can see that white simply castle as soon as possible. Let's check it out once again. So white played e4, black played knight c6. White developed the knight, so now he just wants to remove the bishop and he will castle. Black played d6, white played bishop c6. The reason he played e4 here is very simple, so that the bishop can come to c4. And after bishop c4, e5, white simply castle. So white simply castle as soon as possible. The reason every chess player says that you should castle as soon as possible. The reason is very simple. We can say the main piece of the chess game is the king. Because once the king gets checkmated, the game is over. So you should always try to protect your king, and you should always try to keep the king on the safe square. So castle, the king is actually very safe compared to the black king because the king is actually on the center, and white can actually break the center with a d4, and the black king is much weaker than the white king. White king is actually perfectly placed on g. Yeah, so you should always try to castle as soon as possible. So this was the second tip. So now let's move to the third tip. So the third tip here is occupy the center. What I mean by this? Let's check it out. White starts with 1e4. We have c6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, bishop to f4, d6, and now we have bishop c4. What is happening? And what I meant by occupy the center. So let's look from the start. If I talk about the whole chess and I say try to find the center squares of the whole chessboard, what will you say? I think the common reply would be these 4 highlighted chess squares. Yeah, these 4 squares are the center of the chessboard. So what I meant by the occupy the center here is you should always try to control these 4 highlighted squares. The reason is very simple. You should always try to control the highlighted square here by by controlling the highlighted squares, the center squares of the chessboard, you gain more space, as well as your pieces get much more powerful than they are right here placed on the first rank. Because let's talk about the knight on b1. For now, the knight is on b1 is controlling these two squares. Okay, and if I talk about the final position, now the knight on c3 is controlling this g5, b5, a4, b1, e2, as well as e4 at some point. Yeah, so he's just controlling every square. Yep, so that now currently the knight on c3 is much better place rather than on b1. So you should always try to occupy the center, because after occupying the center, your game will become much easier to play. And when we talk about the black position is just too bad. Black is not having any control in the center. Just look at the arrows. So white is having a perfect control on the center, and yeah, white is just completely winning. Both the pawns are on the center. Have you ever wondered that if you just check the games of just top level chess players, many of the players, I think perhaps 99% of the players starts the game with a 1 e4 or perhaps 1 d4. The reason is very simple, because after playing this such moves like e4 or d4, you try to occupy the center. You play d4, you are occupying the e4 square, as well as you are covering the d5 square as well. So by making the first move, you are covering the two highlighted center squares, which are just amazing. So yeah, this was the third tip. Occupy the center. You should always try to occupy the center as soon as possible. So yeah, so this was the third tip. So now let's move to the fourth tip. So the fourth tip here is exert pressure on the center. What I meant by this. So white starts with 1 e4, black replied with e5, and white played knight f3. So white, after playing e4, is controlling the e4 square as well as the d5 square, and black played d5, and now he's controlling the e5 square as well as the d4 square. Okay, so basically white is covering this e5 square and d4 square, and white is covering e4 square and d5 square. So after playing knight f3, now knight is targeting the pawn on e5, as well as now he's also covering the square on d4. So black replies with knight c6, and actually this position have been played a millions of times. Yeah, because this is a very quite natural opening. After playing knight c6, now black is also covering the protecting square on d4 as well as protecting the square on e5. Yeah, so now white knight cannot capture the pawn on e5, because now the knight on c6 is protecting the pawn. So after playing knight c6, white played bishop e5. You should always remember, guys, as you also want to try to capture the center, your opponent also wants to occupy the center as well. So you should always try to exert pressure on the center. So we can see by playing the last move, bishop to b5. After playing bishop b5, we can see that the bishop wants to capture the knight, and after black captures the bishop, now white will capture the pawn on e5, and white would be having a very harmonious position. He would be having a much nicer control than the black position. Yeah, because the knight would be on e5, the pawn is on e4, he's controlling the square on d5. So basically, white plan is to capture the knight, and he wants to capture the pawn. So this was the idea. Always try to exert pressure on the center. You can also try to exert pressure on the center by playing stuff like c3 followed by d4. Yeah, because the c3 is pawn protecting the pawn on d4, and you would be having a very nice position. Yep. So this was the fourth tip. Always try to exert pressure on the center. You should always try to hit the pieces which are controlling the center, and you should always try to occupy the center. So this was the fourth tip. So now let's move to the fifth tip. So the fifth tip here is don't play the same piece twice in the beginning. What is the meaning of this? Let's check. The statement is just very clarified. What I meant by here is let's see an example. White plays e4, we have e5, knight c3, knight f6. And there are many players who just try to develop only try to develop their one or two minor pieces and they start doing attack. It can work in the beginner level, but in the amateurs level or the club level players, it is not going to work. After playing knight f6, many players play knight to d5, try to trade off the pieces. But the amateurs or the advanced level players will simply ignore this and they will simply develop the pieces. They will simply follow the first rule, develop the piece as fast as possible. After knight c6, white captured the knight and black captured the knight with the queen. And now let's compare the position. So, if I compare the white position, white knight was on b1. He developed it on c3. He played it on d5 and he simply captured the knight on f6. Whereas black simply made one move by developing the knight on f6. As well as at that time when white was coming from b1 to c3 to d5 to capture the knight, black simply developed his another knight as well as he captured the knight with the queen. And now black developed his two minor pieces. Okay, queen is not a minor piece, but still it's a piece. And if I talk about white position, white haven't developed a piece at all. He developed the one piece, but he played it wrong. He just simply captured the knight and give black the opportunity to develop as fast as he can. So this was the fifth tip. You should always try to not play the same piece twice. So you should don't play the same piece twice in the beginning. So this was the fifth. So I think this point is very much clarified because there are many players who just tries to move the same minor piece, not developing the another piece. They just might lose the game. So this was the fifth tip. Don't play the same piece twice in the beginning. So now let's move to the sixth tip. So now we have the sixth tip, last but not the least. Don't bring your queen out to win. What is the meaning of this? I think the statement is very clarified. But let's check it. White starts with 1 e4 and we have e4. Before telling you another move, after e5, there are many players who try to just do a short 4 movement. I think many of you know how to do a 4 movement. After doing the 4 movement, they think, okay, they are professionals. But actually, this trick would work on the beginner's level. But in the advanced level, it is not going to work. So, in the beginner level, let's see how they play. e5, white develops the bishop, black plays the knight. There are many players who plays queen f3. Or even, perhaps queen to h5. The idea is very simple. They want to checkmate on f7 by capturing the pawn. And the beginners definitely don't know how to stop it and they play a wrong move and white simply captured the pawn and it's a checkmate, game over for black. But definitely it would work on the beginner level, but in advanced level or in the club level player, this doesn't going to work at all. The reason is very simple. If they try to continue the same play in the advanced level, let's check out what will happen. White played e4, e5, bishop c4, knight c6, and after queen f3. They are not going to play d6 like a stupid move. They are going to develop their another piece by playing knight f6, and now there is no more checkmate because the knight is in between. They have to play knight h3 trying to castle. Black is going to play d6. You have d3, they want to play bishop g5 trying to pin the knight, but now comes knight to d4. They simply came up with a knight, which gives an opportunity for the knight to attack the queen on f3, as well as now black knight is also planning to capture the pawn on c2, which will attack the king as well as the rook. Just a very dangerous move for the white. So white is forced to play queen d1, and now black will simply play bishop to g4. So white have to play queen d2, and after queen d2, just look at the position. White just wasted his all time by developing the queen on f3. He went back and now he played queen to d2. He just took out the queen too early, which is actually the bad idea. The queen is very powerful and the queen is very vulnerable at the start because Your opponent will always try to develop their minor pieces as soon as possible and try to hit your queen, because definitely the queen is much powerful than the rest of the pieces. Yeah, so hitting your queen is very nice idea for your opponent. Yeah, the queen is very vulnerable. So you should, so this is the final tip. You should always try to don't bring your queen too early. Yeah, queen out too early. Yeah, you should always try to preserve the queen. And before developing your queen, you should always try to develop your minor pieces, as we saw in the tip number 1. Develop your minor pieces as soon as possible. So these were the 6 exciting tips. I hope that these 6 tips might help you in improving your chess game. If these tips would help you in improving your chess, then please help me by subscribing to the channel and as well as liking the video, because subscribing the channel, liking the video gives me motivation to make such videos, because I think this video would help many players, many beginner players. So please share the video with your friends and family members. I hope you like the video. So I'm going to come up with these new video for you. So till then, stay tuned, keep watching Chess Fights.